arriving here and now, inviting you to close your eyes if it's safe and comfortable for you in this moment. And simply being here as you are. Being here as we are. And in this moment, noticing the breath, noticing the inhale and the exhale, and the space in between. Can you even notice the heartbeat? Sensing the heartbeat, sensing the breath, and appreciating how you're alive with the breath and the heartbeat. We are here, we are alive. We are choosing to live, and it all happens with total ease, without any effort at all. The heart beats, and the breath breathes through us. Feeling anchored and present in this moment with the breath, with the heartbeat. And I open this space, our time together, with the sound of the bell. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. Welcome,
Thanks,
Nam,
man.
beautiful friend and guest, and welcome anyone watching and listening. This is Spiraling Within, where we spiral within the present moment together. And so, Nam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Gosh, how do I introduce myself within this context? My name is Nam Nguyen. I am.
That's a great start.
It's a great start. I'm born and raised in the Bay Area. What am I? I'm a brother. I'm a son. I'm a believer. And I'm a friend. I'm an uncle. I'm all those things. First and foremost, and I think in this format of a podcast or video cast, whatever it might be, it's really great to open that way, because most podcasts I do, I open up with the other side of me, which is I'm a agency founder, I'm a marketing professional, I'm a marketing leader, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's nice to lead with in this context, all the things that I'm probably more proud of, right? Or I am more proud of. So yeah,
and
thanks for having this space. Mm-hmm.
I mean, even in that, I feel you leading with your heart. And I think that that's true just in our few years of knowing each other and being friends, and also getting to connect with you and work with you in the capacity of you being a marketing professional. The cool thing about you is that all of those aspects of your relational, personal, just philosophy of life is woven into the way that you approach, quote unquote, like business as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Totally.
When you said believer, though, I just want to, what are you a believer in?
I'm a believer in so many things, right? Like, I'm not religious, right? Mm-hmm. But I am very spiritual, right? I do believe in gods, right? Mm-hmm. all of them, you know, for the most part, depending on how you define it now. But I believe in gods. I believe in people, right, and their capacity to carry that. And you know, we share the experience of going through Catholic education for most of our lives, right? And I went through Catholic education as a Buddhist, right?
Yeah.
And so, and not only that, I also became a leader in campus ministry by the time I graduated Catholic high school, right? So it was spaces that have allowed me to explore my spirituality, of which I've been able to, which I discovered early as a Buddhist, as a young man, carried through my adolescent and adult lives, and to what you were just speaking about, has informed my further adult life, my professional life, and which allows me to approach my brand of marketing or advertising, as you will, a certain way, right? And so, yeah, I'm very, very much have always been very spiritual, you know, but it's just not something you really talk about anymore. But with Supervillain, my agency, and the work we were able to do together, Archbishop Reardon High School, right, which is a Catholic high school combining, you know, Catholic education, something really cool that you helped lead the school through, which was a co-ed integration, right? And then now continuing that work with other Catholic schools. Like we have actually, now we're working with 38, 39 Catholic schools now.
What?
Yeah, I can catch you
Oh my
up.
God, I feel like my mom. Whoa.
And,
Whoa.
Yeah, it's been incredible. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, just context. Nam and I, we haven't spoken in like over a year. And so there's lots of, well, I feel like we haven't caught up as, you know, in a friendship chit chat capacity in over a year. But the last time we connected was in our work together last summer with Reardon. So yeah, it's like we both lived an expanded lifetime in that
so
time.
many lives. Yeah, but it's cool, and I appreciate you recognizing that. And you were the one that brought me into Reardon, but that was also the same time as when I started Supervillain. One of our first clients too was Curry Brand, and he himself is very spiritual, right? He's religious, and he calls himself a believer. And I think like even through the early works of Supervillain to now, I've really have just embraced. It's not like I wasn't before, but I've just really embraced being more public and open about this aspect of my life and having it converge and blend continuously, right? But that's a path, you know. It's continuous growth, continuous integration, and continuous learning, right? Of how you can just, in an ideal world, collide all the best parts of your life.
Yeah, and that's definitely a parallel that I resonate with, of being more open with spirituality, with just all the things, because I think that's definitely a journey. I'm with all the alien, cosmic, multi-dimensional frequencies of the Earth star and the goddesses and the things and the I'm here for all of it.
I'm so curious because thank you, social media, right, for even though we haven't been in touch for the better part of a year, through at least social media, there was a period where I didn't hear anything, and then all of a sudden it felt like you reemerged publicly in like a very maybe similar way of just being like, hey, you just wrapped yourself around this aspect of you of which you were comfortable sharing again. And I'm really curious about that journey with you, because I think I very much come to this conversation this morning, and I think as I get older, I'm trying to remind myself that as I get older, I still have not more to learn, not less to learn, right? And so witnessing you and your journey, I'm like, okay, well, what can I unearth today from like this path that you've taken? Because it's been it's like almost two different Pei-Lings, right? From what I know. It's the same Pei-Ling, don't get me wrong, it's the same Pei-Ling, but it's like a massive like kind of shift, one that I didn't see. So I'd love to understand, you know, your journey a little bit more, so I can maybe take away something from you, you know, learn something from you. So
yeah, well, I so appreciate and resonate with your openness, because I say that we're really all ageless. Like this is a time of the hierarchy or paradigm of power over, power under, teacher being above student, student being below master, all those things, it's like we're all just on this equal level playing field, because as we expand our awareness of the multidimensionality of our existence, it's like this is not my first time around the rodeo. Like I've existed and we've all existed eternally, and it's just a matter of how much we choose to remember. But you're totally right about it being like it's a totally different Pei-Ling in some ways, because we first met, it was right after I graduated college, I'm pretty sure. So that was 2019. And even then, like postgraduate college me and like high school and like very different. I was already kind of in the transition of discovering, I was like on the brink at that point. 2019, I was on the brink of all these dots connecting and all these synchronicities that were guiding me to spirituality. And then going to work at Reardon for 2 years, which I'm so glad that you remind me of our parallel with Catholic education, because I went to Catholic high school, a Jesuit university, and then went back into a Catholic high school to work right after college. And that really was this womb. It felt like a womb, and especially Reardon being a Marianist high school, and I'm so connected with Mary. Like it literally was like I was in the womb of Mother Mary without even knowing that that's what was happening, and had this incredible spaciousness and safety to explore all of these facets of my spirituality, and essentially just completely just like completely quantum evolve and transform and go through all of these lives and do all of this alignment work within myself and intergenerational ancestral trauma work, and just basically completely break down who I thought I was so that I could really just be who I already was.
You know what's really cool about hearing that observationally, because I didn't know you before you graduated, right? I've always heard about you because one of your teachers and friends is one of my dear friends, and so she would always tell me about you, and you're like, oh my god, and like for a long time she's like, I have this one student who's just like amazing, she's gonna do amazing things with her life, right? And I remember hearing about your educational background too, about how gifted you are, right, in academics and how intellectual you are and whatnot. And I remember when you graduated and I heard that you decided to take this job as an RA at Reardon and not like do maybe other things that people might have expected you to do, right? Like go pursue a law degree, go pursue some corpo job where you could have really made some great impact. It reminds me of something I had said when I was like 17, and I was reflecting on a mentor of mine, a Kemi Flynn at MIDI, and we were talking about mentors, and I was just like, hey, a Kemi who was the CEO of a nonprofit who I looked up to, I was like, hey, Kemi could have been anything that she wanted, but she chose to be this, right? And I said it in a way as a teenager that was just like kind of at the time probably a little like, why wouldn't you have picked some more traditionally powerful job, etc. And I remember Tom Matroni, if you remember Tom Matroni.
Yeah, bio teacher.
Yep, he was my religion teacher at that time.
Oh.
And it was a religion class, and he was like, "Nam, how do you not know that's exactly where she wants to be?" Right? And that forever changed my viewpoint on people's decisions on things, right? Because I was just like, oh, maybe some people are choosing things deliberately, of which a lot of times they are. And I remember you choosing the Reardon job and thinking the same thing. I know you at the time probably felt a little confused, right?
Yeah.
But me at the time, based off of that, that kind of moment that I've carried with me throughout and seeing people a certain way and evaluating like, okay, where you were at, and knowing, because we would talk a lot about where you were and what to do next and whatnot. And my observation at the time was just like, oh no, Pei-Ling's exactly where she needs to be. Right? You chose that, even though your confusion, might have felt like was a part of your confusion for sure, but I also feel like that was just like a lot of societal confusion, right? It was a lot of like the pressure of like, you know, people not expecting you to make a move such as you did, which if you didn't make that move, you wouldn't have been on a certain path, right? And so when you say, hey, all these dots connect, sometimes it takes a little bit to look at it, right? But I can see how that was a really maybe key part of your journey, yeah. Or was
absolutely.
To what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, because it was this moment where literally this job fell out of the universe and into my lap. And it was, because I remember all throughout my senior year of college, I had a brief moment in the fall semester where I was, you know, LinkedIn and I'd always been very career oriented and was always like interviewing people. And then a point came and I was just like, I just want to enjoy myself. I just want to enjoy my life. And so I'm just going to like surrender and trust that I know that I can get a job. I know that the potential is within me to get a job if that is what I desire. And then I just trusted. And then it was this June after I graduated, and David Lynn, who's actually going to be my next guest on the podcast, he just Facebook messaged me with this job, and I said no, because like you said, who wants to be an RA at a high school right after they graduate with, like, I definitely was, especially at the time, an all-boys Catholic high school, an all-boys private Catholic high school, and me being an RA, but then it was just one of those things where all of the things were aligned, just divine alignment in all the ways, like the fact that they created a marketing media communications position, and then that became... it allowed me to go through all of the possible careers that I was curious about and essentially check them off. I was like, nope. I got to discover that all of these areas of interest, because have you heard of, you know, zone of genius, that kind of phrase? No. Or so basically that skill, like what comes naturally to you or areas that you excel in. It's this idea that you have areas of divine genius, and when you're functioning within your zone of genius, that might be where you're most joyful or efficient or expansive, all of those things. And so there's your divine genius, and then also I experience it, we each have these areas of ascended mastery. So have you heard of the term ascended masters?
No.
So ascended masters is a term that's often used to describe like Jesus and Kuan Yin and Buddha, and there's a whole list of ascended masters, and each ascended master has a host of ascended master, like areas of ascended mastery. So for example, Thoth, who is like the ascended master of the Akashic records and scribes and communication and all of these different things. And so it's not like, or Kuan Yin, for example, and compassion and grace and beauty. It's not like each of us has only one area that that comes and flows easily from us and through us. And I believe that we are each ascended masters. Like we each have ascended mastery within us. And sometimes it can be so close to us that we might not realize that that's an area that we're masterful at. And so it's interesting because in college, like I studied things that I initially did not enjoy. That I was like, okay, let me study international studies and like the UN and stuff, because these are things that I never really gravitated towards, because the other things like creativity and, marketing or stuff, they just came easily to me that I was like, I'm not gonna study those things. So for me, that's like an area of ascended mastery that I experience is, communication and creation, like these things, they just flow through me. Interesting that I'm on this kind of side path of ascended mastery. And so what Reardon allowed me was that, because there's even a subtle difference between like something that you're great at and something you're like masterful at. And I could spend my life just doing things that I'm great at. And you, like running an agency, I'm sure you have gotten lots of experience of this, of how you not spend, because time is infinite, how you flow through life and how you, like, if you have units of energy, how you spend those units of energy, which can always refill and overflow. But it's like, are you going to spend your units of energy doing something that you just really don't enjoy and maybe you're just competent at? Like, do you want to spend your time doing things you're simply competent at? Me personally, no. I would rather be in my areas of mastery. And so even in, for example, like with this podcast, after editing the first episode, I was like, audio editing is not in my area of mastery. It is not in my area of heart, delight, and joy. And so I got to find someone and connect with someone who is, and then they get to now support me. And so it's this wonderful co-creation. Same with transcriptions. Are creating transcriptions, and no, it's not. And so with Reardon, I got to be like, okay, these are areas that I am great at, or I am good at, and I am skilled at, but they don't light my heart up. They don't light my heart up. And so, yeah, that was really such a gift to get to kind of in a very short, accelerated time, go through the catalog of all of these options for these potential timelines and paths for me and be like, okay, none of the above, what is actually in my heart?
Totally. No, and I think that's so good. And it's one of those things that, you know, I work with a lot of young people, and, you know, we think about hiring young people, and I think, and I, you know, those that reach out, I always, you know, I always say yes, right? Especially when it's young people, like trying to figure it out, and that's the one thing that I advise people to do, but I think it's really hard for them to bet on, right? Which is this idea that they should go find a place where, especially where they are curious, to go figure out the things that do make their hearts sing, right? Like the things that do trigger them, and to learn, right? Because I think you doing that at such a younger age, I should say, is amazing, because that's like how I was, right? Like I was so confused leaving, not because I used to be a nonprofit where I thought and I know like I was good at that, right? Like but leaving that to enter in marketing advertising, like I like did everything. I said yes to everything. And to your point, it's so good to try things out so you can start to, you know, find yourself towards those spaces where you can recognize that version of yourself that is towards that ascended mastery. And then and I like what you had said about finding someone to like edit for you, because then when you feel like you don't have to be good at everything, or you don't have to like love everything, then you allow space for collaboration and partnership, right? Then the ego kind of fades away a little bit because you've leaned into it in a big way, right? And you've allowed people to like come in and support you. And that's something that today I still learn, right? Like running an agency where in theory I've been in the business for so long, I want to do it all, right? But you know, checking in with myself to be like, no, actually, this is an area where I need to go find the ascended master. You know what I mean? Yeah. This is an area where, like, you know, I need to find someone who loves this. And in that way, when you let those people in, their joy becomes your joy, right? Because they feel like they're a part of something that you love, right? And it's great. And then I also recognize the moments when the things I don't like, I get really like, not short, like I get really like stressed and tight. I feel my jaw like clenching, and you're like, wait a second, like why am I putting myself through this when when to what you're saying, they're masters in all around, right? And other people that you can lean on. So it's cool. It's cool to hear you talk about it.
Yeah, and that, I mean, props to you for listening to the feedback of your body, because our body and our literal system of our mind, body, heart, emotions, all the things is constantly offering us feedback of what does light us up and what kind of closes us or contracts us. And it's interesting because we're like the idea of confusion. I definitely was choosing to be confused. I was choosing to experience life as though I didn't know my direction. Because going back to choice, I love what you said about choice. Whether we remember or not, we're all sovereign beings with infinite choice. And sometimes there's that overlay of victim mentality that like, oh, why is this happening to me? Why is this person making me feel this way? Why am I in this like shitty situation? And that's like a very valid experience being experienced through a lens of separation consciousness. Totally. Of that forgetting that you are the one creating and choosing all totally. That you experience. Like nobody makes me feel any way. I choose to experience whatever feeling and energy arises within my experience. Yeah, and so what was I saying? I was do, and then there was something.
There was choice. We were talking about
choice.
Ascendant mastery.
We were talking about ascendant mastery and choice.
And we can move forward in another direction too, if you want to.
Yeah. Well, so I think what I was saying was I was talking about you receiving feedback. And so what my awareness is actually being brought to right now is that there's energy and sensation in my head right now. And this has kind of been present since yesterday. It's like the right lobe of my head, and there's, how would I describe this energy? It's like a diffused pulsation that, it's interesting. It's green. And it kind of has like all these little dots or sparkles. And that is not how I always described what maybe a prior version of me would call, I have a headache.
Right.
But it's like, it's kind of, it's just like that. Saying that, why is this headache happening? Some outside force has come in and cursed me with this physical sensation. That's that victim overlay, that I'm a that I'm a victim to my body, that I'm a victim to the sensations and the experiences that I have within this body. And the truth is, I am choosing to experience this sensation. And in being aware of it, I also then have the choice of how I relate to it. We were talking about partnership and how amazing it is to get to co-create and partner and collaborate with people who are in their areas of joy, in their areas of mastery. It's the same thing with our relationship with our body, or even different parts of our body. We're in partnership with our body, and in this relationship between me and this energy or sensation that's in my head right now, it's like I can go, let me get some ibuprofen and get rid of it and like numb it and come from that. How do I get rid of this because there is something wrong? It is bad or wrong for me to experience sensation. And so how do I get rid of that? That's one, layer. Or I can be like, okay, it's here. Simply, it is here. It is present. It is part of this present moment. And can I, from the remembrance that I am simply pure light anyway, just welcome it as the energy that it is that just happens to be floating through, and maybe not even need to know why it's here. Because I can, tune in, I can ask the energy, I can be like, okay, why are you here? What message do you have for me? Do. Or I can just be like, okay, this is where my attention is right now. I am present, and I'm going to just welcome it, just like I would welcome the breeze on my face, or just like I would welcome the light that is streaming in through the window. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really, it's really interesting. And I think what's interesting about that is, because I think it's interesting, right? Because it's like the subtle things, right? Where you're like, like for example, like I had my eye was like twitching for like a good week, right? Last week. And I just know it was because like I was literally grinding so hard, wasn't getting any sleep, etc. And so it's like moments like that where you're constantly checking in. And what's funny is like, like I'll close my eyes occasionally and then like, and I'll take deep breaths and it'll go away. But there are moments that where like, especially as I get older, I get really scared. I'm like, oh my gosh, is that like something bigger? Should I go see a doctor for that? And so it is this like weird, tricky place, right? When you experience something that is maybe pain, like how do you know when to take it seriously versus like checking in and trying to extract it, right? And I think that's like kind of the biggest thing, because like the last thing you want it to be is to be something completely more severe that went like undiagnosed, right? Like
maybe. I mean, that's the coming from. And I remember growing up, anytime it is such a thing to be in this physical body, to be in a physical body on this earth. It's quite a special experience. And, the body does there are all these like sensations of being in a body. Like I remember maybe, like a rash or something, and a part of me, that overlay of fear of dying would be like, oh my gosh, am I gonna die? Like, am I gonna die from this rash because it's, unfamiliar? The body is constantly, like your eye twitch that you mentioned, all of these ways that the body experiences energy. And then from that place of fear of, survival consciousness, it's like, any experience of energy is a reminder or an alert or an alarm that I'm going to die, or this is going to kill me. And
totally.
That is a very, it kind of like, it's like fear can just color everything. The presence of fear can just color everything. And it has such a good intention. Like the fear of dying, what does the fear of dying want? It wants to live. It wants to be and to exist. And that at least helps me recognizing the presence of fear, and that I am not only fear, that I'm maybe inclusive of fear in my experience in this moment, but I'm choosing to experience fear. And also that like at the essence of fear is love, that fear just loves me and wants me to be alive, because that is the best way that it in its programming knows how to do that. And you said, how do we know when to elevate an issue, elevate a circumstance and ask for resources or support? It's like we each know that within ourselves. WebMD might reflect something, like Googling a symptom and then seeing something, it might spark some moments of realization within you. But ultimately, it's like we are our own best teachers, and we are the only ones who are inhabiting our bodies. So we are the ones who know our bodies the best.
That's really interesting. I like how you talk about that, because I think for those that are probably, those who are listening to this, you probably have a very specific audience, but outsiders might listen to this and be like, well, you're literally telling people to like not be afraid of like that thing that's ailing them, where the reality is I think what I hear you saying, and which I very much agree with, right, is like, and even how you opened up this podcast is like, you're not saying completely ignore the pain, but you're saying like, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if we are completely in tune with our body, if we're constantly checking in with ourselves, and we recognize what those things are, we will know when it's like bad. Like we will know when we need to seek that elevated mastery, right, of like a doctor or whatever it might be, to that point. And I think it's really interesting to think about it that way, because I don't think a lot of us, right, today check in with who we are, how we're doing, how we're feeling, which leads us to, I think, a lot of people just constantly acting in fear, right? And I couldn't agree more, where fear is just a part of life, right? Like to your point, like we as human beings, of course, are afraid of things, because to your point, if we weren't afraid of things, we wouldn't be alive, right? Like in a lot of ways, if we weren't afraid of things, like, you know, if you weren't afraid of, like, my dog is like, I love watching Venom, my dog, right?
Yeah.
She's a rescue, whatever, but there are things where, like, you know what, she has like just the right amount of recognition and fear to know that, like, she shouldn't just like stand in the middle of the street or run out into the middle street unwarranted, right? Like, she has that, like because she is who she is, and she's so, you know, capable as a dog, which I think a lot of dogs are, right? Like, that's allowed her to be with me in this space, that allows her not to, like, just completely, like, you know, run into the middle of the street when she's, like, off leash with me, right? Because I think, to your point, that fear is healthy, right? Like, it is a healthy thing to help you make decisions throughout life. Because, I mean, a lot of my decisions were not made because of fear, but because I've recognized and understand the pathways of which the fear can take you, right? So, I mean, it's always been a part of my life. You know, I grew up incredibly fearful, you know, and I think you know a little bit about my history, my background. And even to this day, like, starting Supervillain, like, one of the scariest things I've ever done, but at the same time, I knew I was incredibly capable, right? So yeah, I mean, fear, the relationship to fear in your decisions, I think, is a really interesting conversation, because it's deeply connected.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm glad that we're continuing this thread of fear, because there are subconscious beliefs that I've gotten to kind of notice within myself and choose to deprogram, choose to not believe. And there are subtleties to them. Even the belief that I need fear in order to live. There can be this, I guess the word that's coming up is codependency with the energy of fear. It's like fear being an energy that is necessary in order to survive. And in my in my present experience, I choose to live without fear. And not, if fear arises, like if fear just bubbles up to the surface, then it's absolutely welcome. It's absolutely included. It's absolutely met and embraced with love. But I also remember that I don't need to live in a state of fear in order for my heart to continue to beat. But my heartbeat does not need fear in order to beat. My breath does not need fear in order to keep breathing. And yeah, go ahead.
No, it's an interesting conversation, right? Because I get what you're saying, and I think I'm slightly to the right of that, right? Where and maybe it's just like my very much Buddhist upbringing of like yin and yang, right? And like, you know, I have the tattoos on my tattoos on my arm, chaos and order, right? And so it's not like fear dictates your life, but I think it's a recognition of fear, which I think you're talking about, right? That is important, right? And for you not to run away from it, but to be like, you know, like, no, fear is a given. Like, every emotion out there is a given. And I think what's tough is when the fear comes, and like, and correct me if I'm wrong, if what I'm trying to understand what you're saying, but I think if you allow fear to dictate and define your life, that's a choice, right? That's a choice. But I think we're maybe on the same page, and maybe, I don't know, circling each other, right?
We're spiraling.
Yeah, we're spiraling, right? Where for me, my viewpoint is like, there was a moment in my life where fear dictated everything, right? And then I remember the moment when I was just like, not anymore, right? And that happened several times in my life, right? Because it's this creeping thing that resurfaces because, I mean, I don't know if you, by like, because I don't know, I was listening to this NPR like podcast on like fear, and it's like, hey, fear is like this like your desire to fear, or not desire, but your ability to fear is to keep you out of danger, right? Mm-hmm. But some people run so far away from it, and I've seen it. I've done it in my past. And what's interesting is when you lean into it and understand how you can embrace it, for me at least, has been the moments when I've had probably the biggest breakthroughs, you know? And those were those moments in my life I was talking about where like I chose not to do it here, but then I also listened to it here because it probably kept me alive, right? Like, because it kept me away from those guys that like, you know, could have ended up horribly, or kept me away from like, you know, so there are those instinctive pathways where it's less fear controlling you, but you understanding the signals of what your own body or your own mind's trying to tell you about how to navigate your world, right?
Yeah, and what's your experience of that voice? What is that compass within you that supports you in discerning what's that compass? What's your inner compass?
Yeah, my inner compass, it's interesting. My inner compass is, I mean, gosh, it's like, it is, my inner compass is, gosh, what makes up the magnets of my compass is what you're asking, is basically, I process, ever since I was a young kid, I've processed like everything. Like I probably am, and I overanalyze things probably too much sometimes. And not because it cripples me, but because I just want to understand every potential possibility of this world, right? Like I believe, and I've always believed that like, that, you know, that one decision can ripple to another, and I don't try to control it, because when I look back in my life, everything makes sense, the highs, the lows, etc. But my compass really comes from, it's not just one thing, but I think it's like an entire lifetime of just listening to yourself and learning from others, right? And at the same time, this like almost like crazy optimism that's also wrapped around it, right? Because I don't know, because it's crazy, because I've navigated this life long enough where I've surpassed my own life expectancy, right? Like I thought I was only gonna live to like not even 25 at one point. And I realized the thing that's kept me here is that like I know when to defend and protect, etc., and I know when to back off, go a different route, or whatever it is, right? And the compass really comes from, at the end of the day, there's a few things. If I had to like summarize it, it's probably what is just, right? What is just and what is right and what is fair. What is like visually, instinctively like safe, right? Like the thing is like there are just certain things you go into and you know like that's a bad situation, and you have to like listen to that, right? There's a little bit of paranoia, I gotta say, you know, growing up in the way I did and how I did. There's also a healthy amount of paranoia, right? And then there's that also healthy amount of optimism, right? And belief that things can be different and you have the ability to impact that place, that person, and yourself, right? And that opportunity. And it's a constant bet on yourself, right? But yeah, all those things kind of combine to make up that magnet, right? That is like a precious metal, because it can't be just like taught, right? Like you have to mine it, right? Like you have to like understand it for yourself and what it means for yourself, because no person's like, you know, polarity of their compass is going to be the same necessarily, you know? So.
Does your magnet exist before you? In your experience, was your magnet... So your magnet was already, and then you came in as Nam?
Both. I would say both, right? I think we're all given... I mean, so here's the thing. So ancestrally, I know that there is things beyond me and my lineage and lives before me, right, that contribute to who I am today. Like, there are just certain things I can't explain, right? Like, how was I able to triumph over certain adversity or moments that I wasn't able to, right? Like, and there's a lot of them. And when I look back and when you study family lineage, or even beyond family lineage, like where your people come from, right?
Homeland, absolutely.
Homeland, where your native people come from, which makes so much sense as to why, like, I feel like that I've faced so many challenges, right? But when you understand all that, yeah, there's something in you that you have to recognize, right? And for me personally, like, if I personally don't pay respect to that, like, I've taken everything that I was given and the lifetimes before me for granted. You know what I mean? Like, because there is a lot to learn there. And I don't know, like, I remember my parents, and you might have had one, you know, because you're Asian. I don't know if you had a shrine in your house at all? No, you didn't? No. Oh my gosh.
Not okay, that so flavor of Asian.
Yeah, not that flavor of Asian. So I grew up with this ancestral shrine, right? Where it was like my grandfather, like all those that have passed before me, right? And I remember my dad, like, every Friday night would be like, hey, go pay respects to your ancestors. And I loved that as a kid. You know, if I had children today, I mean, it's actually informed a lot of what I do today, right? It's like, I remember I would pay respects, and my dad would tell me stories about them and what they did and the decisions that they made and the things that they've built and the families that they've built and the mistakes they've made, right? And like, all of it, the good and the bad, as a kid. And I remembered, I was like, oh, I'm cut from this, right? Like, I have them running through me, right? And in that moment, you're like, okay, it wasn't all perfect, but hey, I have an opportunity to take what I was given and build it from there, right? And what are you going to leave behind? And that's really interesting, because that's also why I feel like you know, it's a really interesting time for me right now too, because I'm in a very, like, spiritual moment of my life, right? Which Amit, was that Amit was not wrong. He was just like, hey, you're about to enter
Amit was the Vedic astrologer you saw, right? Yeah. Yep.
Amit was the Vedic astrologer I saw, and he was just like, hey, you're about to enter the next 16 years of your life is gonna be your most spiritual, right? And I was just like, wow, is that possible? Because I feel like compared to most people, I've already been there, right? But I get what he was saying, was that, like, everything that I saw before these years, ancestrally, spiritually, even from a faith background, are all coming back together. But I think, yeah, for me, I've recognized that who I am was made up of those who came before, which has also allowed me to approach my life a certain way where, of course, like, you know, I have an ego at times, but at the same time, I'm also very, like, I give all the credit away all the time, right? And that is not an Asian thing, right? Maybe it is. It slightly probably is. But it's also me just understanding that, like, my work today wasn't governed by purely my decisions, right? My work today actually are my decisions, but they are all in tribute to those who came before me, right? And even Supervillain itself, you know, I built the company as a tribute to so many things, right? Like, there's a reason why we're called Supervillain. There's a reason why we chose the mint green. There's a reason why roses are a motif of ours, right? Like, my agency is a legit tribute to everyone, be it family, heroes which were villains at the time, right? But heroes that we recognize today, because that's the mark that I want to leave for whoever comes through the agency or whoever takes it over next, right? Is like, hey, can we create something in this world in a world that is looking forward so much, can I create something in this world that is anchored in yesterday, but is driving the future forward, right? So it's really interesting.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. There's so much around time and ancestry that I definitely relate with the level of intentionality that you bring to the branding, and I think that that's definitely something that's infused within me too, because every aspect, every color, every curve of the brand that is Pei-Ling Lee, that is this like an umbrella brand for me, it is so infused, and it continues to evolve as I evolve, and it's honoring specific things, and that's like, you speak with this sense of that tribute. There's a sense of inherent honor, and at least what I hear, there's this recognition of the interconnectedness of you, that you are, yes, an individual as Nam, and you are infinitely interconnected with ancestors, with the entire world around, with plants, with animals, all the things. And in my experience, because I want to tie in the magnet as well. Like, as you were describing the magnet of your inner compass, and you were saying a healthy amount of like paranoia, a healthy amount of optimism, like that is the perfect recipe for your magnet. That's the recipe of the magnet that you're choosing to get to lead your life. And that recipe, like you said, everyone has a different magnet. Like, that is not my recipe. My recipe doesn't really have any fear or paranoia in it. It's like delight and rainbows and sparkles and joy and music and like, I don't know. It's like the essence of my light. That's really my magnet, is my light that is connected with the stars and with the earth and with source itself. And how wonderful it is that you get to have your magnet. I get to be guided by my magnet, and then like, we just get to be who we are uniquely and individually. Yeah.
Totally. I think that's what makes the world so beautiful, right? Which is why I think it's so scary. Like, I look at the world today and I get really nervous, right? Not for me. Like, I love the world as I see it, and I love the world that I'm creating, right? Like, I tell my therapist, I go to therapy twice a week, right? As you know. And I always tell my therapist I have this thing, and she's just like, wow, you're so obsessed with this thing. I'm like, yeah. I was like, create your own kingdom, right? Like,
yeah, I love that. Yes.
That is my thing. It's just like, hey, you can't control the world. But what's crazy to me is that, like, the world right now is looking for that, like, that lane that they can fit in, right? And I'm not saying the whole world, but it feels like right now, like, we're picking sides, and we're like, you know, we're getting pushed more to the edges, right? Where what I'm really excited by actually is this next generation that doesn't care about the edges, and they just care about the fluidity in between, right? Because it is that individuality that, like, people should embrace, because when you get pushed to the edges, you end up making decisions that you may not have wanted to make for yourself, right? You know, and I think it's hard though, right? Because, like, if you look on like social media or whatever it is, those algorithms are designed to put you in lanes, right? Like, they're categorizing you constantly. Right? Like, those things, that algorithm is constantly categorizing you. Like, I mean, if you talk to anyone who works at a tech company, like, or machine learning or AI, like, it is literally categorizing you, right? It's turning you into data sets. Where I'm talking to, you know, a friend of mine, Vin, who's just like this gaming developer engineer. He's like so unlike me and very similar in a lot of ways. We're like really deep connected friends, and we're so different. He was telling me about the beauty of randomness, right? He was just like, actually, like, he's like, what's really beautiful are when algorithms are programmed to pick things at random, right? Because as much as algorithms are designed to, like, be efficient models and put you into positions, he's like, actually, if you just went randomly, you'd end up at the same spot, right? And so I find it really interesting that, like, I'm like, we should embrace more of the randomness in our life rather than trying to identify things that we think we should be, right? But if once you can embrace like the messiness, it gets really good.
There's so much. There's so much that you've said. There's so much that you said about edges in technology. So you talked about polarization and edges, and you mentioned your tattoos of the duality, and that is again a choice. It's a choice to experience the world through the lens of duality, and it's a choice to experience the world through the lens of the oneness. The fact that the yin is in the yang is in the yin, the light is in the dark is in the light. And that, because to me it's like, and it goes back to fear, oneness includes duality. Oneness inherently includes the wholeness, that even that which seems to be opposite is included within the one. And so that's just more so that's the lens of consciousness, of unity consciousness, that I kind of resonate with. And so just speaking to the energetics of it, because that really, the language of anything, in my experience, is fundamentally just neutral energy. Whether, for example, walking into one space versus another, whether we realize that we're energetically attuned to what that space is, and we would call it energy, we're vibrational energetic beings. We are literally that which seems to be the edge of our skin. You zoom in, you zoom in, you zoom in, you zoom in, down to the subatomic particle level, zoom in even more. It's just energy and vibration. It's just space. It just happens to be that this mass of energy, this collection of energy, is vibrating so slowly that it seems to not be moving, or it seems to stay in this one solid form, versus something like sunlight or water, where it, vibrates more quickly. And the relevance of that is that literally that which seems to be the edge of me it's not this hard line where there's a one side and there's another side. Even in this moment, as I tune into the bottoms of my feet, and if your feet are on the floor, I invite you to notice the bottoms of your feet and genuinely notice the energy or the sensation of your bottoms of your feet upon the floor. And can you, without looking, just consulting your direct sensational experience, draw a line between where your foot ends and the floor begins? Personally, I can't. Even between my toes, I wouldn't be able to, draw an exact line between where one toe ends and the other toe begins. And so what interests me about that fluidity is the direct experience of it. Like, it's not an abstract concept, the oneness with all things. It's like in my body, I can literally in this moment now feel how the edge of what seems to be the physical form of Pei-Ling blurs into the hardwood floors, blurs into the chair I'm sitting on, blurs into the sound that is traveling through this microphone to you. And so that is a paradigm shift. It's a paradigm shift versus living for 20 something years of my life being like, this is where I end. There is a hard boundary between where I end and something else begins. And yes, we each have our magnets. There is a light that is uniquely me, and that within that contains all of the things, and all of the things contain all of things. And about the technology, because within this, it's like with that magnet, the magnet is both a transmitter and a receiver. We're continuously sending out signals, and we're continuously receiving signals from the world around us. And at least in my experience of being back on social media these past months, and even like I downloaded Hinge, the dating app, again a couple weeks ago, and the algorithm of technology, like I once had quite my relationship to technology was very much, there was quite a bit of fear and resistance and, feeling like technology was something other than me, something outside of me, this force that was controlling me or wanted to, whatever the stories are. But then it's almost like as my awareness of the sense of me expands, as I realize that I am pure light that expands beyond this body, and I'm actually all the things that seem to be reflected back at me, the algorithm is just a reflection of my consciousness. The way that I experience any algorithm is for and from me. That's like how each of us, we go onto the same app and we have a totally unique experience. And in terms of the programming, absolutely, that as those are being programmed, you're talking about being categorized and labeled. Like, that's being programmed from a specific frequency. And what excites me is, well, one, I genuinely feel that my experience of technology, I get to reprogram my experience of it regardless of what they put in the code. Like, it's in me interacting with it that I get to, that it becomes a reflection of my consciousness. And so it really just delivers the perfect experience for me, from me. Like, it's not some, outside force that is trying to get me to do anything. It's all, I take full ownership and responsibility of whatever technology reflects within me, because fundamentally I am technology. This system, this body is technology. And the mind, like the language of programming, is because we can program the mind. We can program what we believe, and even habits. Like, I remember reading the book, The Power of Habit, when I was in high school. And that book is essentially about deprogramming and reprogramming new habits. And that's part of like evolution and all of these things. And so, yeah, what excites me about technology is, because words, this speaking right now is technology. Alphabet, like letters, these are codes that are strung together in sequences that then are encoded with meaning, such that when you receive it, I'm communicating something to you through this code, through this technology of the spoken language. And creating technology, co-creating, even that partnership, partnering with various forms of technologies, whether they seem to be ancient technologies like, a sundial or something, or they seem to be super futuristic technologies like space travel. It's like this is the last thing that I was thinking about when you were talking about the ancestors. In my experience of the now moment, the ancestors of the past, they're right here. And the ancestors of the future, the legacy of the world that is being created for now, those yet to be incarnate human babies, they're also right here. All of the past, the present, and the future, they're all within this one now moment, in my experience. And that, yeah, those are some some things.
No, it's really interesting to listen, because I think I'm just probably, we're like circling each other, where I'm not 100% in alignment with some of the things you said, but other things I totally agree, right? Like that last thing you said I thought was really nice, because I fundamentally agree about that, right? Like, I feel like I'm a vessel for my ancestors, right? And I'm living a very rich life that I very much love today. And who am I doing it for? It's being informed by it sounds crazy to some people, but like, I always used to be like, well, I want to live a life that sets up and is inspired by like perhaps my future children, right? And then that shifted from, after my separation, I was like, well, maybe I'm not going to have children. And then it went back to like my nonprofit work, where all of our children are all of our children. It takes a village type of idea, where I'm like, no, I'm still doing it for all these children, because like we're working with nearly 40 schools now, right? And we get to impact their experience through this. So that's, and it's always been that way, right? Like, for everything that I've ever done has always been, well, how can I just be a transmitter for tomorrow, right? Like, I am just a brick in this greater, structure of the universe, right? I'm just like a small brick in that. But how can I be like a really strong brick? How can I be like that cornerstone brick? And if we could all be like cornerstone, then we can have like an incredibly, beautiful world. I think the only thing around technology that I want to that's interesting, because I wanted to hear you out on that, where I think I still can't come around on, is that people like for example, there's a really big criticism in machine learning and artificial intelligence right now that like it doesn't recognize dark skin, right? Like it's being programmed by like mostly white dudes, and you're like, well, the programmers control the experience, right? Or you bring up Hinge or you bring up the dating apps, and if you look at those algorithms and those statistics alone, I have never matched on any dating app. Well, maybe twice. I've matched twice and I've tried them all. And then when you look at the statistics where you're like, well, Asian men are only 6% successful, and today there's only a 14% chance of people going on dates. So I'm like, okay, that is technology informing an experience. And so my relationship with technology, and I agree with the ancient and the new, but my experience with technology today is actually like, well, I think we have a choice to turn it off, right? Like you don't necessarily need to make everything a part of your existence. And so that's my thing is like, hey, if your experience is amazing and it's great, go for it, right? But if you're finding yourself in a place where it's making you doubt yourself, it's making you feel a certain way, and it's not working for you, you need to turn that off, and you need to find yourself in another way. Because I think it's really, I think reprogramming is important, which is why I chose the industry of mass media, right? Because you need people like me, people of color and women to be in seats of media, because media, like in technology today, influences so much, right? And you need those programmers there, right? So it's an interesting conversation around tech where I'm glad like you're able to take it and make it work for you, and like you have a great experience with it like some other people do. But I also want to, and I guess this is where people probably listening are like, oh, they're like similar, but they're also like, they're spiraling, right? They're like circling each other, because just like your magnet is like full of rainbows and sunshine, my magnet around that paranoia is also informed by like the reality of like the world that I can't control. Right?
Absolutely. And the amazing thing about why I love this container space of this podcast is that there are people who absolutely connect and listen to everything that you're saying and are like, yes, yes, yes. I feel so like I resonate with the things that Nam are saying. And they're likely maybe different people that are like, yes, yes, yes to the things I'm saying. And then we get to, in this co-creation, amplify each other's frequencies because they're both perfect and like beautiful. Like my intention is, I definitely don't need anybody to believe the things that I'm saying. And that is not a desire that I have, because it's your truth is within you. And whoever is listening, their truth is within them. And when we encounter perspectives that seem to be, maybe just to a side, or it doesn't seem to be 100% in alignment, that offers us the opportunity to get clear on what is within our truth, what is aligned with us.
Well, to your point, we're not using the one technology that we should, which is just like straight up conversation anymore, right? Like, and that's the thing. It's like, because I think it's a very rare experience, at least for me these days. It becomes more and more rare, and which is tough, because like I surround myself with very great people. I surround myself with the best people, and in that microcosm, we're able to do this, right? We're able to disagree. We're able to not even disagree. We're able to just like have a conversation, and wrap our minds and hearts around the other's viewpoint and respect it, right? And I think that's the one thing that I'm just like, hey, it would be amazing, and I think in a lot of ways, modern technology has allowed people to do that, have conversation, have dialogues. In a lot of ways, it hasn't. But I just wish we can go back to that ancient technology of which you're talking about, of just sitting down and like looking into each other's eyes and like having a conversation and respecting the counterpart. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you bring up ancient technology as well, because ancient technology is also extremely advanced. Like
sure.
the sitting down and having a conversation, like that also to me speaks of meditation. That simply meditation is a technology, a way of connecting with all of these technologies. And the stars, astrology, and then not even like looking at constellations or patterns of the stars. I'm literally talking about the fact that we are rotating on this orb amidst space, that we are on and in a solar system amidst galaxies, and we are not alone. And that's the amazing thing about like a lot of ancient cultures and traditions is they remember their connection. They remember our connection, our human connection with the stars and with the rest of the cosmos. And that's it's cool to kind of be part of and be here now. And you talk about being a brick within the thing. Like I feel like a bridge. I definitely feel like I'm a bridge of anchoring this remembrance of the stars, just like you're talking about the remembrance of the ancestors. Because to me, my ancestral lineage, yes, it includes the ancestors of body and land and of this earth. And also a significant part of my ancestral lineage is from all of the incarnations that I've experienced in various star systems. Like literally, as some may call, being an alien in many different galaxies, and being here to bridge the connection with all of these different star systems, as well as collaborating with the Earth itself, with the planet, and all of these things. And so it's interesting about technology because it's technology regardless, technology is just one thing, but we could say anything. We could say relationships, we could say the environment. All of these are part of this holographic reality where they're reflecting, in my experience, consciousness. Technology is a reflection of human consciousness, whether it seems to be programmed by white guys in a specific pocket of the world, or whoever it's programmed by, because there are infinite programmers. And that's the thing. It's like, whether we call ourselves a programmer or not, we're all programmers of technology within our reality. And that's kind of just the nature of consciousness. Even as we get dressed in the morning, putting on outfits, we're programming the technology of our experience, the technology of our expression in this world. And in the times when, because a big shift in my journey, that has kind of come into expression in the past months, really, of me reemerging in social media and reemerging just like in life, is this choice within myself that I'm done hiding. That I'm simply complete with hiding and dimming my light, which I was choosing to do because I was so afraid of shining, so afraid of being seen, so deeply afraid of seeing myself, seeing my truth, and for others to see me. Because if others see me, then, I'll be targeted, attacked. And my years in school also offered me the experience of what it's like to shine. Because you mentioned, in school and stuff, I did well, well with air quotes, whatever, in the paradigm of hierarchy where you can get grades and there's somebody at the top of the class, I did well. And I felt tremendously isolated because of that. I was choosing to experience what it's like to shine and be that cornerstone brick, and then feel like other people hate the cornerstone brick. Like, feel like nobody wants to be friends with the person who's at the, who's shining. And so what did I do? I muted myself. Even in a situation like this, where maybe a prior me would just want to be agreeable for the sake of what seems to be harmony. But the truth is, it's like, there's a unique light that shines through me, just as there's a unique light that shines through you. And it may not resonate with everyone. Like, it's that idea that I may not seem to be for everyone, and that's okay, because I don't need to be for anyone other than for me. And choosing to shine and choosing to see myself, choosing to be seen, my experience of the world then echoes that back to me. And even things as simple, that seem so simple, but are actually, like you said, like a ripple effect of going to a shop and just being full of joy and light and just smile. Like, I enjoy smiling. I've discovered that I love smiling. Smiling is like a natural expression on my face. And then for the person serving me food to be like, oh, you have a beautiful smile. Like, that is so, it just touches my heart. And it's a reflection of what my magnet is expressing in the world. And it doesn't mean that it was bad when I was hiding. Not at all. Like, that was it was exactly where I was meant to be. It's simply, I'm choosing not to, what did you say about fear before? You said that whether fear is determining, essentially, whether fear is the thing determining your life, running your life. I'm simply choosing to, I guess choosing to live from my essential love and light and what my magnet is telling me, what my magnet and how my magnet expresses through me.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Do you feel like I mean, because it's interesting, you call yourself a bridge, and I like these, like, you know, kind of like metaphors and analogies, because it helps paint a picture for me. Do you feel like you embrace everyone's magnet? Like, how do you approach, like, what's your stance on, like, everyone's difference in magnets? And if you come across someone who's incredibly challenging, right, because you're so full of light, how do you, Pei-Ling, today, like, handle that and think about that? You know, like, if someone comes to you, they say something totally vital.
I have a great example, very recent, on Thursday. Mm-hmm. Just a couple days ago, I posted a video. Oh, and this is relevant to fear as well. I just had my singing lesson, and I was really enjoying and really excited about the way that my voice was. I was just enjoying my voice. And so I sang the snippet of Colors of the Wind. And, you know, I've been on this vocal journey for a couple years of, voice lessons. And my voice has literally evolved. It's been a parallel evolution with all my spiritual expansion and all those things. And I felt inspired to share this clip of me singing Colors of the Wind. I was singing in, quite a different area of my voice. It was like more of a belty, and even when I went to share it, there was the energy of fear present within me. There was this little sparkling of fear because of the way that my voice sounded. I could hear these tremors and these flickers in my voice, and I was like, that note kind of sounds a bit off pitch, whatever that lens of me judging my voice and determining whether it was good or bad. I still felt my magnet was guiding me to share it, and so I posted it. And then I get back that evening and I see a comment on it that says, what does it say? Please stop. Don't ever sing again. Laughing face emoji, face palm emoji. And and just in that moment when I saw it, there was this flash that came by of that fear that was saying, oh, may I delete the post? Let me delete that comment, as in, like, let me just delete that comment and get rid of that. And then a split second later, I found myself, because it was like I could see the fear in front of me or see the fear emerge within my awareness. And because I've become such good friends with fear, that really is like my inner critic and like all of these aspects. I'm so familiar with these programs and these energies that these patterns that arise that I like immediately shifted back into my heart and remembering the multidimensionality of the experience and all of these things. and essentially zooming out from my fear. And I responded and it was amazing because I genuinely, yes, that flashed, but I wasn't, my wobble was subtle. It was a subtle wobble versus the same comment a year and a half ago it would have been like a situation for me. And I responded to her comment saying, thank you so much for sharing your experience. Your voice is beautiful as it is, with a heart. And then I liked her comment. Anyone could receive my comment however they receive it. Someone could read that and be like, oh, she's being blah, 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 blah. But at least in my experience of sharing it, it was coming from the truth of my gratitude for the experience of getting to encounter that seemingly quote unquote negative energy. Because really that comment was a gift. It was an opportunity for me to notice any energies of me seeking approval, any energies of me, judging myself or putting myself down for being the way it is. Because I believe that even if my voice sounds dissonant or sounds off pitch, the truth is that I enjoy expressing my voice, and that even if something seems to be out of alignment, it's already in perfect harmony. And so when those circumstances arise, it's just I choose to meet it with love and gratitude for the experience, for what it reflects in me. And also at the same time, it's like those moments don't often arise. For example, I don't watch the news. I don't watch the news. I don't watch violent TV shows. I really don't watch suspense and thriller. In terms of the things that I consume and I choose to receive, because you talk about, some people may go on social media and be like, okay, I can choose to turn that off. There's a lot that I choose to turn off in my kingdom of my reality. And so I guess I'm not magnetizing many of those experiences to me, but when they do arise, I choose to experience them as a gift.
Oh, it's really interesting. Yeah, no, I mean it's interesting because I think I've gone through. So I don't choose to magnetize a lot of the things I experience on a day-to-day basis, right? From being a kid to even today, bouts of extreme violence or whatever it is, because I'm actually quite the opposite, right? Mm-hmm. But you can't control the world, right? That's why I say build my own kingdom, because I can control this. But hey, when you go outside your kingdom, you leave prepared, right? You leave prepared, but at least you have a place to come back to. But I think it's really great that you can experience it that way, and I have a longer road back to joy and rainbows and whatever, and it's my insane ability to remain optimistic that allows me to come back. But I think it's really interesting, because there's definitely moments that I experience my entire life, even today, where you're just out in the world and it's just not okay. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I think that's the biggest thing is it's nice hearing your experience and how you approach it. Because I don't really get the chance to sit down and talk to my aggressors sometimes about why is it that you're feeling the way you are, or why is it that you're choosing to do the things that you do. Not I need to understand it, because I think I can gather where they're coming from. But it's there's a magnet that you have And I think it's that polarity, because then you recognize that I carry with me outside my kingdom, because then it's the polarization of another magnet that you're not supposed to connect with that keeps me out of harm's way. You know what I mean? Which in a lot of ways, though, is really sad, because to that point, though, like, yeah, like I would want to share my version of singing with them in the hopes that it can open up something, right? And sometimes it does. Because I've had tons of experiences where I've actually really connected with people who have attacked me, or like who have judged me, or who have been afraid of me, right? And there have been many instances when I've been able to get over that hump. But yeah, no, it's really interesting, and I think I saw that video of yours too, and I just remember being like, it's like, damn, you look like you were in that moment, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, but no surprise, you're gonna get trolls. You know, like you get trolls in any space or whatever it is. But it's really great to see you, feel really at home and at peace, and like sharing yourself, because to that end, someone else is gonna view that and been like, damn, like I need to be doing the same thing. And that's what we need more of, right? Like we need more of that reverberation than the others. So, definitely admire your ability to like keep, the distance of people who maybe aren't receiving you in the way that you are intending, because in other ways it's going to allow others to express themselves in like form, right? And it just reminds me of like, one of my favorite things, because you bring up singing, one of my favorite things of all time, this is like I don't know, like I'm obsessed with it, is watching the like on YouTube, like all the singing audition shows, like like The Voice, American Idol, and whatnot. And I love the good and I love the bad, or bad, right? Like I love it when it's like, because at the end of the day, like I just admire the bravery that it takes for anyone, whether they're just nailing it, or they're just like, or they don't make that moment, because there's such an aberration there, because like that is just like, people laying, I think even my playlist is like, and I've saved like a bunch of these videos of like all auditions that I just found inspiring, and it literally says lay it the F out there, right?
Yeah. And
it's cool, because I think it's one of those things where it's cool. It was a moment that I admired, because it's like a super brave thing to put yourself out there,
Yeah, and it is inspiring I feel so inspired seeing people just being themselves. Like, you being you inspires me not to be you, because I don't want to be you. It inspires me to be me. And it's kind of that like hypothetical of, sometimes I ask myself, if I remember that I am fully loved and accepted and celebrated exactly as I am, is there anything in this moment that I would do differently? Would I play it full out, like just a little bit more? Would I, in this moment, just wave my hands up in the air and shake like I just don't care? Like, is there something that I would do in this moment that, if I remember that I'm safe inherently? And a question that comes up for me about your kingdom is do you experience your kingdom as being something that is outside of you? Like, do you leave your kingdom, or is your kingdom within you? Like, is your kingdom something outside, or is your kingdom within?
It's both. I think it's both, right? Like, it's something that I carry with me, right? Like it is here, right? Like, the edges, chaos and order. There's a reason why I put it on my limbs, my two arms, because right in the middle is where the truth is, right? And so I carry it with me, so people can experience it, right? And it's one of those things where I take it with me no matter where I go, and I think that's just been proven over and over again. Because when I enter in jobs in the past, I've always been able to make immediate change, and then when I leave, I think, like I take, I know that there's a loss, right? Because I brought something so different and whatever. But that comes with me, right? And I invite people in. right? And that is a kingdom where you can bring people in. So it is something that travels with you for sure. But for me as well, because you speak of safety, like Supervillain, I decided to double down on an office space during COVID, because I understand how important it is to have safe spaces to also be yourself, to thrive, to discover, right? To come back to our go-to and have a moment within the walls of the kingdom to innovate, right? To build, to connect, to feel, to eat, to nourish, right? To rest, right? So like that's why we doubled down and we created this like mini campus where we allow people who that are part of my kingdom more or less to come, whether they are paid on Supervillain payroll or not, to come and be a part of what we're trying to do here, right? So I think it's both, right? Because at the end of the day, there's a reason why kingdoms expand, right? And it's because people are trying to like take that philosophy, that like that thing that they're building and trying to grow it as great as possible, be it good or bad, right? Like, so yeah, I think it goes both ways. And I think the biggest thing here is the reason why Supervillain was a tribute to people, and we're all about people. And even our tagline, I don't know if you remember, it's a shady place for sunny people.
Yeah.
Right? It is literally a place where if you are of like mind, we want you here because we want you to discover how to build your own kingdom here, right? And so when you go to the next job, or when you go represent us or yourself, like you feel like you can because you know what it felt like here, right? And I do think that, I mean, that's the one thing where, and I know, like, and here's the thing, I know, like, when I receive the hate or the anger, the animosity when I go out, right? And I carry that with me. It's because, like, people don't necessarily agree with the way I approach things.
Yeah.
And that's cool, that's okay. But at the same time, I think what's interesting is, how do you defend that, right? And how do you defend it in a way that is still core to the things that you believe, but at the same time go to protect this way of being, right? In a world where sometimes it feels upside down, right? Like it feels like the balances are a little tipped. But yeah, I think the kingdom is with you, but it's also, I also think, like, as much as you can, you need a place where you don't have to actively always be it, where you can surround yourself with others, or be it even in your own sanctuary or space, so you can recharge, right? And that's a complete privilege too, right? Because I remember growing up and I was bullied, and I was like a straight D student, right? Like, and I remember parent-teacher conferences, and I remember sitting in parent-teacher conference, and they were like, your kid's gonna amount to nothing. Like, your son is not academically inclined, he has attitude, behavioral issues, he's not gonna be anything in life. Like, I remember it was like a summary in my head of being like 7 years old and hearing that, right? And then the moment, and then certain things happened. My mom had to pull me out of school because, like, I was just getting tore up as a human. Like, my body was just like, like, I was physically not going to survive. She puts me into St. Martin's in Sunnyvale, where, like, I experienced zero bullying. I experienced spirituality. I experienced a space to, like, feel and see and be seen. It was safe. I graduated 8th grade at the top of my class. Right? And so it's one of those things where you're like, so you bring up safety, and I think that's so important, right? And that's why, like, when I look at things, like, how can we continue to create that safe safe world, and having parents who fled a war, right? And that's constantly on my mind. Like, I think you grow up with that narrative, and you grow up with their experience that is connected to you. And I found like their old refugee journal from 1979, of which I'm republishing to share with like the younger generation. You're just constantly reminded about how important safety is and how big of a privilege it is. And so when you do have it and you can create it and you can create it for others, you have to do it, right? Like you have to do it, because that is, and for me, I experienced it firsthand, because the moment I had it was the moment everything changed, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I create kingdoms to protect people. So.
And the blessing of a safe space is that it is, because a safe space for one person might not feel like a safe space for another person, but we, in determining or finding, connecting with the spaces that feel safe for us, like for me, the redwoods, that is a beautiful sanctuary and a safe space. The beach, my bedroom, there. Even a park or next to some flowers. These are safe spaces. And I think the gift that I've experienced about being in these sanctuaries, even like you mentioned Catholic school, there was safety in pockets of that I definitely experienced, that became conducive for me to discover my inner safety, like to feel safe within myself and feel safe within my body and like my physical body, feel safe within the me that I am. And then it's from that place of inner safety that then like we can create safe spaces that ripple out. It's like, if you, I mean, I'm curious, if you don't know what it feels like to feel safe, do you feel like you can create that kingdom of safety? Or do you, like, I guess it's a bit of a chicken egg question, but like, do you feel like having a sense of what it feels like to be safe within yourself is what contributes to you being able to offer?
For sure. I think philosophically, it's just like going back to the fear thing, right? To know fear is to understand comfort, right? It's to understand it. And so for safety, because I experience so much in my life that I can recognize as not safe, which is a part of my compass, right? That's become a part of my compass. Like, I know now how to create it, right? Which is why like my teams are incredibly diverse always, and they're always incredibly bonded, right? Like, not always, because like you always have people who can't connect or whatever, but for the most part, that has been my MO as someone in my place, in my position, is to like create spaces where we hire, and like what we say in our company values too, right? Like, we're looking for great talent, better people, right? Because it is about creating environments that are heart first, that are human led, right? That are and I don't care about the talent half the time, right? Because if you're down to show up, be a good person, be open, receptive, learn, like, we all can teach each other everything else, right? Like, I didn't come into this business with a massive creative portfolio, and I didn't go to art school, and like I didn't have all the tools, but I did have the heart, I did have the curiosity, I did have the humility, and I had the generosity to absorb, connect, to share, to move on, to be resilient in an industry that is incredibly cutthroat and that has screwed me over time and time again, to continue to show up and continue to build the version that I want to see, right? And so I think, and that is what the reason why I've always taken people that I cherish with me from company to company, because you need other people to continue to connect and to help, like, expand this version of environment that you want to create. and I go through this because like I have so much of it in myself, right? For sure. But just like anyone else, like as a human, it also gets incredibly lonely sometimes when you're of the only kind of thought, right? Or whatever it is. But what's been really cool, like, you know, using my voice in this industry has made me a villain in a lot of ways because I want it to be a certain way. Which is why we call it supervillain in a lot of ways, but it also has shifted the narrative, and the world is actually coming to a place now where we're like, hey, we need to be doing things differently. It's actually like, you know, we talk about things making sense, right? And the constellations of things, and you're like, hey, if you would have asked me 20 years ago when I started in business, if like this version of my agency could have existed, I've been like, I sure as hell hope so, but I'm not putting money on it, right? Because the odds didn't look good, but I believed in it fundamentally so much that I banked my whole career on it. But now we're at a place where looking back, I'm like, thank God I stayed the course, right? Thank God, like I didn't stray away from myself and the things I valued. Because I can look back now in my career and be like, hey, everything I fundamentally did from a standpoint of character and integrity and the things I fundamentally believed in have all led me to this moment where now I've started this agency that I'm super proud of, you know, and I think people really love being a part of for the most part, you know. I think it's never perfect. But I would now today hold my agency up against any other agency proudly because we're doing it in a way that fundamentally is consistent with the thing that I believed in from the very beginning when I left the nonprofit world to go into marketing advertising, which is like make it about the people, right? And then the people become the purpose and the purpose becomes a promise, right? And then from there, you know, you can really do things that are going to move the world forward in a way that you see fit, I see fit, right? And again, people aren't going to agree with me. Like they don't agree with your singing or they don't agree with whatever or the clothes I wear, but that's okay, right? Like at the end of the day, we're building our own kingdoms that allow us to, you know, really express and manifest what it is that we want to leave behind for tomorrow, right? And so I mean, that's all you can really do in this life, right? Especially as I get older and mortality is, you're staring down mortality a little bit. I mean, I'm still pretty young, but like, you're like, okay, well, like, what is my leave behind? What is my impact? And that's important to me, you know? So I don't know, do you think about?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I remember 2 years ago, I was really into Ayurveda and, you know, I was maybe 21, 22 at the time. And a large part of my motivation was I recognized that I was preparing my body to one day be pregnant and that journey for me begins like decades, like years and years before the actual point of potential pregnancy. And it's the same thing and I'm so grateful for your reminder, which really inspires me in this moment and is just an affirmation of me in the point in linear time where I am in my journey, which it seems to be in the beginning, that I'm kind of I'm at this exciting beginning point of experiencing the unfolding and actualization in the physical plane of my empire, my divine empire as the empress that I am. Because first, like, the kingdom exists in these unseen realms. It exists within our heart. At least for me, it's like my heart space is the ultimate infinite sanctuary, and that's where it all emerges from. And then it's just it's being along for the ride as it unfolds, as it comes into form, as things are created, like this podcast, or for you, like getting an office space. Like that is that is as physical as you can get of witnessing your kingdom be manifest. And the reminder really is it's all in alignment with divine time. It's like, it may not be what the mind expects or would want. Like maybe there's a part of me that wants to just snap my fingers and have it all be right here, right now. But there's also, you know, another part of me, the compass, that doesn't actually want that. That's not it's not a line for me to have my entire empire manifest in this moment. Otherwise it would be. But I have the vision.
Totally.
The vision is here, and the vision is with me, and the vision is expressed through me. And then it's just going back to the conductivity of environments. There's a literal vibrational alignment, just like that magnet. It's only when the environment around the world, we are matched with that thing being manifest. It's like Supervillain sprouted and blossomed in the exact time when all of the things were aligned, all of the pieces were in place for it to just bloom and sprout.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting about that is, and I'm excited for your journey, and I think you said something important there, is that we need to remain excited about the journey. Right? If things just happen tomorrow, which if it does for you, amazing. But the reality is like it only happens tomorrow for like 1% of the population, if less than probably, right? But everything is a journey, it's a process, and there is a story, right? That's why like I just would love, I mean, I might sound like a boomer or whatever people want to call it, but like I just love the idea of like these stories, right? Like we need to get back to like really wanting and being okay with not knowing what the next chapter is all the time, right? Or so quickly. Because that chapter of yours could be like 10 years or it could be 10 days. Just like a book. Some chapters are 10 pages or they're 50, 100 pages, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's okay. And I look back, and don't get me wrong, there were moments in my early 20s where I was just like, I need to do this, I need to have this, I need to be here, if I'm not here by this age, whatever. But then there was a moment when I realized, I was like, well, hey, I'm a little different, right? And I'm approaching things differently. There is no timetable to any of this, right? Yeah. And even then, I don't know if I want to be doing the same thing in like 20 years, right? Now, I because at the end of the day, like the job descriptions that were in front of me in my early 20s, like they don't, like there are like 20 new jobs since then that didn't exist then but exist now, that I was just driving towards, right? When everyone told me to specialize, pick one thing, I was like, no, I'm curious. I love everything, right? And I'm going to see where that takes me. But you don't understand yourself, and you can't feel great about and look back and learn and feel great about everything if you're just trying to fast forward everything, right? Like enjoy the process. Like the hard times I look back at were actually moments that had nothing to do with my career, but had everything to do about two best friends that showed up for me because of a major speed bump in my career. And that moment wasn't about propelling my career. It was about fortifying my relationship with those two men that then impacted my career, right? But now they are also lifelong brothers, you know? Like, and those are the moments that are hard. That's not about you or the job. And I do think that there is pride in one's work, and it's good to find a purpose. I think that's just like whatever that is, you know, and you should desire that and want that. But if you don't slow down, you're going to lose those other things that come with the thing that you're chasing, which are the moments like, you know, of relationship breakups that, like, you know, could have devastated you but actually took you down this course. Because like you said, everything to me is just connected, right? Like I'm so fortunate to have a job I love, to be doing something I love that very much blurs the line with my personal life. And I know people are like, hey, don't make work your life, but at the same time I'm like, I don't know, like don't tell me what to do, because like you're not me, you know what I mean? Like let people find their own way, which I think is like what we're kind of talking about here, which is like, hey, like, you know, how can we how can we just allow more space for people to discover themselves,
Yeah.
right? And it is a spiral. Like, you know, it's not a straight line, right? Like,
Yeah.
it is,
And enjoying the process.
Totally.
The spiral process, rather than because the process unfolds in these twists and turns. It all boils down for me in the present moment. Nothing happens, you know, the future and the past, they exist in the stories that we kind of experience or tell about them. But even if I recall a memory right now, that memory becomes relevant to me in the present moment. Even if the vision that I have of my manifest divine empire, it is here right now as I envision it. And what is my purpose? My purpose is, for me, being here right now, present with you, with everyone in this moment. And things happen in the moment, which is that very much like is presence and is presence an aspect of your experience of spirituality? Or
yeah. A lot of my spirituality is deeply rooted in Buddhism. You know, I'm not a super, because I've experienced so many different faiths. I can't say like I'm just a Buddhist, right? Like, yeah. But it's deeply rooted in Buddhism, and so being present, being conscious, recognizing the other, also, you know, sacrifice and suffering is a big part of Buddhism as well, right? Which is, and it's a recognition of that, because, like, you know, for them, in Buddhism, you need to understand, you know, the pain to understand the joy, right? Like, it's a little bit of that. And it's not to the point where it's like self-harm, obviously, but it's like to the point it's like, it's okay to suffer. Like, it is totally fine to suffer, because that is a part of life, right? But how do you move from there is the key, right? But while you're suffering, feel it, suffer, right? Knowing that you have the tools and you have the ability to come out of that, but don't run away from it, because it's only going to come back around like that spiral. The suffering's only going to come back at some point in a different shape, a different form. But if you face it then and there, how can you be better prepared next time? And better be prepared next time, and understand yourself better, so the next time it happens, you're just more in tune, more in control. Where these days, like, I don't know, I do a lot, you know, and I've gone through a lot, and you kind of know the story. And people have always asked me, especially like when I've experienced like the massive layoffs, I had to lay off my whole team, the separation, and then now starting an agency and like doing everything. People are like, how are you always so calm, right? And I tell them, it's like, well, it's not because I don't feel anything. it's because I just recognize the suffering and I'm in control of it. You know, like, I absolutely can process what I'm feeling so quickly, which helps me make the best decision for myself or for the people I'm taking care of, right? But that's what happens when you aren't afraid of the suffering or the fear, right? That's what happens when you can like look at it and be like, okay, that's hard, but here's how we can move forward, right?
When I read No Mud, No Lotus by Thich Nhat Hanh, that was a beautiful, beautiful offering of that, reminder of that wisdom of, you know, even just acknowledging the suffering, to even see the suffering within. And then you might relate to this too. It's like, as I became really adept at seeing and noticing and acknowledging and being aware of my suffering and meeting it with love, it's like my clarity and vision of suffering around me. It was like, you can see through the layers and see the suffering, and then meet the suffering in others as well with that compassion and allowance. And I feel like this is a wonderful place to something that's coming up of, as I open up the circle and open up the space for you, Nam, to kind of offer our closing offering, whatever that is, around the creating your kingdom. Like, what, for anyone listening, including myself, like from your experience, something around creating your kingdom, because I love that that's been something that you've been really honing in on. Totally. And I love the language of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so here's the thing, creating your kingdom. So if I had to leave final thoughts on what that means to me, is that early on in my life, I thought I've always wanted to create a kingdom. And I think we all do, right? Like, we want to create a version of this world that is totally blessed for yourself and those that you love. And the one thing I've learned in life is that my kingdom that I've built, my first one, got destroyed, and I had to rebuild it, right? I had to go pick new land. I had to go pick, new material. I had to go figure it out, and I had to go find a different part in me that I didn't visit before as a new plot, right? And then when that one got destroyed, I had to do it again. So we talk about suffering, and we talk about kingdoms, and we talk about structures, and just like Buddhism, and the one thing that I love about Buddhism was I was always obsessed with mandalas, right? Mandalas where, these monks spend weeks putting together these beautiful sand paintings, only to destroy them at the end, right? Because it talks about the impermanence. And so just like your kingdom is impermanent at times, so is suffering, right? And what do they do later? They just go build another one, right? Because when we talk about boundless, kind of love, or boundless energy, or the boundlessness of who we are, relative to this world and the world beyond, the same goes with your own kingdom, right? You can always rebuild it. Now, you just have to be okay with facing the fact and facing the fear and facing the emotions of all the previous work, or all the previous expectations that came with your previous kingdom being crumbled. But my goodness, you've learned so much to build it stronger next time.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's the idea around this kingdom of which you constantly build, and you can invite new people in, right? And you can create it in a way that where you've learned in the past as to why it didn't maybe hold the way it did, right? And you can continue to kind of build it. And the important thing, though, is to not see it as a fortress, right? And it is a kingdom. I'm not talking about a fortress or a castle, right? I'm talking about a kingdom that is to be shared, right? That is to invite people, that has abundant land, right? That has irrigated water, that has well-maintained roads, that has a pathway to trade, right? And it is a kingdom, not a fortress, because a fortress, I think, you kind of hold yourself up. But that is the thought. And then I love that you brought up Thich Nhat Hanh in this final thought, because, he is the teacher. I grew up reading all of his stuff, right? Went to go see him speak at times. And so when he passed, it was peaceful, right? It was peaceful. It was painful, and it was peaceful. But one thing that I thought he did really well that teaches me on how to walk inside and outside of my kingdom, right? Is, he has this book called Waking Meditation, and I think he was really good at adapting meditative and Buddhist practices to the modern world, right? Because he recognized that, hey, the world is moving in a certain direction. We can't constantly, we talk about archaic technologies, right? We can't constantly just be rooted in archaic technologies, but how do we take archaic technologies and adapt them to where we're headed? And the one thing that I love to do at times when I'm either in my physical kingdom, my internal kingdom, or my external kingdom is to kind of do what we just did at the very beginning, close my eyes, right? And when I'm stuck in traffic, just close my eyes, just real quickly, because we're not going anywhere. And then just remember how, or listen to how the sounds of the freeway, because they're zooming by, sound just like the ocean, right? Or when you're at the stoplight waiting to cross the street at a crosswalk, pick out that tree that's like, 50 yards away and see if you can hear it rustle. Like it is one of those moments, it is that thing of like, when you're walking, and you're a walking kingdom, right? When you're walking around, when you're in that moment, how deep and how far, like what is the furthest point that you can take your own mind and your own heart, be it in another person, in the redwoods, in your car, watching a film, whatever, but how far and how deep can you connect? And I think that's kind of like the thing that, I've always done. And it's so cool to talk to someone, like as we wrap up, that is doing that. Because I think like, if we just, really kind of expand our territory of what is possible, it can be really cool where we can go together as humanity and whatnot. So yeah, that's kind of like my thoughts on building kingdoms. And when our kingdoms can interlock, that's a very thriving world, right?
Yeah. So many gems. Oh my goodness. There were so many gems in that. Thank you, Nam. And I love what you said about you were gesturing to your heart, and as you were talking about one kingdom falling and then another one being built, it's discovering those other pockets of land within your heart space, that really that abundant land is within you, and then you get to unlock these other aspects of yourself that maybe you weren't connected with before.
And I'll tell you the thing too is, like you're because you're forced to move to new spaces in you. And the cool part is like when you're old enough, you actually go back to the spaces where they crumbled before, and you build on top of those. And that's the moment it heals, right? Because that's just not torched earth anymore. Like now it's ready for you to like replant, trees and rebuild on top of. And actually, if anything, you already know that land, like, so you know what it can be. So it's also just not abandoning parts of yourself, but it's also going back and understanding that you can rebuild places to heal, so.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Nam.
For sure.
And thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone with us, listening, watching, joining us in this moment. Yeah, so grateful.
Yeah, likewise. No, I think it's really great what you're doing, I'm excited to see your journey, but I also love it like right now, like you're just at a very early stage. You're just like creating spaces, and putting it out there, putting yourself out there. So I'm very happy to be a part of it.
Ah, thank you.